All right, welcome back to the Spero Means Hope podcast, where we share amazing patient stories, interview experts in the community, and share resources for clinicians and students. So today we have with us JJ Mowder-Tinney. Hi, JJ.
Hi, Marcia. I'm so glad to be here. It was very nice of you to ask me.
Yes, thanks for being on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. It's very cold and very snowy up here. It's been very, very cold.
Where are you located again?
I'm up in Rochester, New York.
Oh,
But it's been the roughest winter than we've had in a while. So, yes, cold, snowy, lots of it.
oh my goodness. Okay. Well, did you enjoy your time in Houston last week for
I
CSM?
absolutely did. It was a little it's always a little overwhelming. There's just so many amazing people and then you get to see so many people, and then you're trying to remember where you know them from, and then get to meet all your Instagram fans and your Instagram like legends like
Yeah.
you, and it was just really it was I was very grateful. It's really awesome.
I was definitely grateful that I got to meet you in person. I've been following you for quite a good bit, so it felt like a huge, like, oh my goodness moment. So I'm very, very honored to have met you, but then also to get to talk to you today.
Right, same right here.
Thanks.
I feel the same.
Thanks. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? So, where are you originally from? What do you currently do for a living? And then what do you do for fun?
So I'm originally from Colorado, so I grew up in Colorado, and then did undergrad in Boulder, and then my grad school in Miami, and I did a clinical up here in Rochester, New York, where I met my husband, who just gotten out of the Navy. And so I've lived here ever since with my husband and our golden retrievers. We have one now, Molly. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm a physical therapist, but I'm a full-time professor. So I teach full-time at South College. I taught at a program that was for 15 years that had a pro bono clinic. And then I was traveling so much on the weekends that I really needed a change. And then I ended up going to South College, which is hybrid. So I'm home during the week, working from home, lecturing from home while my husband works from home. So I get to see him because I travel most weekends lecturing to PTs and OTs. And again, my areas of specialty is neuro. Most of my courses are stroke, general neuro, or spinal cord injury, because those are my big heavy loves, and balance. But yeah, so what I do for fun, it's honestly, I think that I'm kind of cheating life a little bit just because I really do love my job.
Mhm.
I love, I mean, obviously some days are better than others when you're in academia, but the joy of the students wanting to learn, converting people and students to neuro over, oh, I always thought I'd do ortho and I just love this course, blah blah blah. And really getting to interact with the therapists, I and just even from Instagram, I just have enjoyed that immensely, just the sharing of ideas and supporting each other. I love that all so much. I think the other things, I'm my side, if I ever lose my day jobs, I'm going to be a photographer because I love to take
Ah,
pictures
wow.
of my dogs and nature, and trying to get the different angles. I mean, I would love to take a course someday, which I think I will. But my friends have always joked that I'm the keeper of the memories because I take pictures of everything. And all our parties, we tend to have parties in the summer at our house because our house is kind of made for it. And so we love to bring lots of different groups of people together for that. So I think that was a long-winded answer of a bunch of different things.
I love that. I love how like your hobby and love for pictures can really be reflected now in like the social media sphere. And something that I found very impressive with you is you take pictures with everybody, but you also remember like where you met them from and their names. And like I don't know if you take notes, but I'm always so amazed how like you shout out like every student you run into and like shout out the program that they're from. And so I love that collection of memories that you do.
Yeah, and I'm not good at it. So thank you. I try really hard. I like have people write their stuff down in my email and send it to me in email. I take a picture of their name tags. Because I just think people deserve to get a shout out, and
Aw.
I love to shout out people's clinics, or if they're starting a their own private practice and our mobile practice, and people are doing so many amazing things. And I'm just in a position where I just really want to shout them out. And so I try. I don't always hit the mark,
Aw.
but I am trying, and I'm finding some strategies
Yeah.
to, as my OT friend Ange would say, to make it better.
Aw. JJ, did you always know you wanted to be a physical therapist?
So, pretty much, I it and in part it was my mom. So my mom was a physical therapist, and when I was really little, because I was the youngest of five, and there was a big gap because I was a extra special. Yay, surprise. So all my siblings were a lot older than me, and so it was just kind of my mom and I, and she would go to the nursing home in the morning, and she would always take me from little, so, and because everybody loved me, they'd get up early out of bed just to buy me a soda at 8 a.m. A little 6-year old, I'm drinking a soda. And then I would go to her private practice, which she was just starting, and was the first woman in Colorado to start a private practice. So she didn't know what she was doing. She grew up on a farm, and just really wanted to do something. And so she like didn't know how to do it. And I feel that way all the time with new things I take on. I don't know how to do it, but it sounds like fun. And you just kind of follow that. And then I literally grew up in her clinic and worked all summer, worked every summer, but because she's a 12-hour a day worker. And I got my work ethic from my mom for sure. And when I got older, though, when I started my undergrad in Boulder, I did get a job at a hospital one summer because I really wanted to know, did I love this profession or did I love working with my mom? And so I was in the hospital and they put me in wound care first. That's where I ended up getting my wound specialist for a while. And they put me here and put me there. And I was like, I love all of it. And so I never went to the ortho route. Um, I just fell in love with my clinicals when I was at the University of Miami. They were like, it's very unique, but for somehow I went to Pensacola and did an acute inpatient rehab. I went to University of Rochester and did acute care. And then I went to New Hampshire and did inpatient rehab. So I did all this inpatient rehab and neuro, and I just loved every minute of it. And so that's kind of what put me down the neuro pathway and not the ortho pathway like my mom was.
Wow. And so you're from Colorado, but studied in Florida, did clinicals in the New York area. Did you always have a love for adventure and moving state to state, or how was that experience first leaving
Yeah,
your home state?
that's funny is that oh no, I wanted to go to University of Colorado. That's where my mom went. But at the time it was the only PT school, and getting into PT school was so hard. I was interviewed and they're like, well, we have people where it's their third time applying because they don't want to leave Colorado. And I was like, well, I'm not going to wait. Like, so I just applied and, getting accepted to the University of Miami, which is one of the top schools. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize the culture shock. It, it was a little bit of a going from Boulder on Friday, and I literally started classes in Miami on Monday in the summer. And in Miami, I'm not a fan of the heat, so it was rough going, a hurricane, and oh my goodness. So, and then when it came to clinicals, like I was the DCE for 7 years at Nazareth University, and they're like, no, I can't go there. No, I can't. I was just like, okay, where am I going? And they just told me, oh, you're going to go to Pensacola, you're going to go to Rochester, you're going to go to New Hampshire. And I was like, okay. I didn't know anybody there. I didn't know it. I just rented rooms from therapists. That's how I met my husband. I rented a room from an OT who knew my husband and went out with their group one night, and so I was just like, I don't know. It's weird. It just feels so different. I just was like, okay, like what am I supposed to do? Okay, I'll figure it out. Like, I don't know. I think being naive is helpful. Because I just kind of went with the flow. But I'm so grateful. I met so many wonderful people. And oh, you know what's so super cool? I don't know. We recently did a course in Pensacola,
Mhm.
and I was like, I wonder if I did my clinical here. Like, I mean, this is like decades ago, and I was like, gosh, this facility looks so familiar. I think I was here. And then we were riding up in the elevator, and so confirmed with the therapist that yeah, I was here. And they're like, oh, I go, well, they were like, was anybody here back then? That was 30 years ago. Like, how long ago? And I said, well, my CI's name was this. And they're like, oh my gosh, he's one of the only two people who've been here this long, and he's the director. And he came down and said hi to
Wow.
me. And he said, I told the therapist you were my student. And they said, no way, you don't know her. And I was like, yeah, I was a student, and it was awesome. I mean, so just those little things like that, just I just feel it just feels amazing, and to feel the connections and how things intertwine, and what a small world therapy is. It's super super fun. So when those things happen, I just am so grateful. But it's awesome.
That's it truly is, and I think it's such a full circle moment for you to like go back to like where you started. When did you decide in your practice to transition from patient care to educator?
That's a great question, and so I always thought I'd be a therapist forever. I never, ever in a million years in the beginning thought I would ever teach. Like, so I was at Strong, University of Rochester, for 10 years. And my mom was very strong willed in regards to, if you're not happy somewhere, you need to move on. Like, you can't stay somewhere where, and she didn't use the word passion then. That's my word that I use all the time now, passion and joy. Like, those are what drives me. Like, that doesn't feel passion, then I'm not going that way. And she just said you always have to have options. So that's why, to me, it was just like more school, more school. Not because I needed letters after my name, just because I loved learning and I always wanted options. I didn't want to ever feel stuck where I had to stay somewhere because they made me, or because I felt like I had no other options. And so my mom instilled that in me really young. And so I always had that. And at University of Rochester, I just felt like I had kind of plateaued. I was the director, in the not the director, but the senior therapist in the acute and patient rehab. I've already done the acute care. Like, I didn't like the way things were going, and it was time. I've just felt it. So someone called me, literally, just I don't know how, but I was a certified wound specialist then. That's what got me into seating and positioning, which got me into spinal cord, which got me into acute and patient rehab. Because when you're the lowest man on the totem pole, you get put in the whirlpool room. And so once I saw these wounds, I was like, I need to learn more. So I just learned as much as I could. So they said, would you give a course on this? And I was like, yeah, I don't want to. Like, first of all, I don't know how to do a continuing ed course. This was back in the day of like slide projector. And I was like, and second of all, I don't really want to talk about wounds all day. Can I do neuro? And they're like, we don't really know what that would look like. And I was like, okay, I'll make you a deal. I said, I'll do a wound care one and a neuro one. And my husband, we've been together 30 years. He's like, you don't know how to do that. And now you're going to do two courses. And I was like, it'll be fun, because I'm naive again. But the neuro one took off, and they're like, okay, whatever you want. So I literally traveled, like, I do a course Wednesday night, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then come home. And it went so well that I was like, okay, I got to quit my day job. And I want to. And it was really scary, because it was like, everyone's like, why would you leave a solid job? But my heart wasn't there anymore. It was like time to move on. And that's when I started working on my PhD. Um, I would have done an EDD, but that wasn't an option, because research isn't my heaviest strength. I had to work really, really hard to get through that program. And I really wanted to learn about teaching more, but my friends kept saying, you could teach about walkers and it'd be interesting. And I was like, really? So like, I never ever thought that. And so it just kind of was, and then a door opened. And then, after doing that for a couple years, Nazareth was like, we want to, we need a director clin ed, and we need a neuro professor, and we're thinking of starting in this pro bono clinic. And I was like, okay, I'll try that. So it evolved, I guess. But it was never, I just think being open, um, and, you think about it, how does it make you feel? And it just sounded fascinating. Like, I like the things that are kind of on the edge,
Yeah.
what's coming up. So I don't know, but I never thought I'd do this.
I like in the theme in your responses is like those two words that you say you use as to like center you when you choose like what to do is like passion and joy. And I think I can really hear that in like, okay, I never thought I would do this, but here I'm doing this, and I really enjoy this aspect of it, which is pretty awesome. And so you worked as Nazarene, and indeed, you're director of clinical education. Um, at which point in your career did you then explore teaching courses with MedBridge, and then the current position that you're on now?
Yeah, so I'm not very good with history. I was the DCE, so I was at Nazareth for 15 years. I was the DCE for 7 years. I just taught neuro and a little bit of other courses, and then I was the chair for 3 years when we got our 10-year accreditation, and by then it was like, okay, I'm tapped out. Like being chair, I was like, hard no, pass, not my thing, want to leave, and but during that time, again, it was one of those strange things. MedBridge just called me, and they were just starting off with neuro. They had done ortho, then they went away for a couple years. I forget the history. Something happened, and then they were starting back up. They just only had ortho people, and they said, oh, you've done courses with this other company, so you know how to do them. Would you be interested? And back then, it was like you have to pay to come out, you have to pay to stay. You don't ever know if you'll make any money. And it's Seattle, so it's not like a little jaunt for me. It's across the country. And I was like, yes. And my husband's like, no. And I was like, what do you mean no? Like, this sounds super fun. Like, they like have cameras and stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I'll like that, but I don't. And they're like, very strict, and I mean that in the most respectful way. Like, they know what they're doing, and they have processes. And this was in the very beginning. Like, I know so many people because for some reason they've kept me around. And if you don't do well on your courses, like if you don't get positive reviews, then they will, once your courses, you'll just go away, So you have to get positive reviews and have people say good things about you for them to ask for you to redo something or to do something else. And I was also really flexible. So like, I don't need blue M&Ms or whatever. Therapists aren't usually like that, but I'm just saying that in general. I was just like, okay, whatever. And they're like, oh, we have to do a 12-hour day. I was like, okay, whatever. I was like, I kind of want to make my flight, my red eye home, and it wasn't about the money. What I did was they asked me to do a general neuro course, and I said, I will do that if you let me do a spinal cord course. But I said, but you won't make money on the spinal cord course because it's going to be few and far between the people who watch it. I said, but we have people who are out in home care and out in skilled who, it's such a unique population that if you don't have anyone and you're just getting someone out of the blue with a C6 injury, or it doesn't even matter. I go, they don't have anywhere to go for this one person, and I want them to have that. I had the most respect at the time for the head person who was meeting with me. He's like, no problem. That's exactly what we want. We want to support the therapist. And I was like, ooh, I like you. And and very passionate about the product and making sure that they're giving therapists the support that they needed. And so once they said I could do the spot, it was like, they're like, that's going to be a lot of work. And I was like, that's the thing I know how to do. I know how to work hard and enjoy it while I do it. So, it's like, really, will you really let me? Because I go, I just want to be forefront. I do not think you will make any money from it. And they're like, well, then you won't make any money. And I said, but that's not why I'm doing this. And they said, that's not why we're doing it. And so I was like, okay, yay, let's go. Let's have some fun. So
I love that. If you're looking at the full range of your professional journey, like what would you say are some of the greatest obstacles that you had to overcome?
myself. Mostly, well, just the fear, just like, I just remember when I went to go quit at the University of Rochester, like I went in to tell them of the seniors, and they're like, we can't believe you're quitting. And I was like, have you seen me the last year? Like, I have not been joyful. And they're like, well, we are either, but we're going to stay. And I was like, like, I can't do that. But then you start to second guess yourself, like, oh, I'm leaving a job that has good benefits, that is going to continue to grow, that I know how to do. I don't have to think too hard about it, into a completely unknown, me just doing continuing ed that's brand new, that no one knows what's going to happen. And the same thing with Nazareth. Like, it was a point where I was like, okay, it's time to go. And literally, um, I quit a week before COVID hit.
Oh, wow. Wow.
and and so I put in my notice. Like I could have taken it back, but I put in my notice, and then a week later, COVID hit, and I'm thinking we don't have insurance because my husband's a contractor, and I was thinking, what did I just do? And that lasted for about a minute, and then I was like, I just have to. It's all going to work out. Like I really believe everything's going to work out, and but I do believe that, but sometimes I don't always feel it. So I think that really is it. Just second guessing. I think it always comes back to me second guessing myself, me being fearful of choices, me like just starting Instagram. Holy crow, that scares the crud out of me. And you put something out and then someone gets and I'm like, oh, no I don't want any here at all. And so, and then it's like, well, you can't. Then I'm like, what? Lots of people, and then everyone has their opinion, but I want everyone to feel included. And so you just wonder, am I doing the right thing? And then something like CSM, where people like come say hi and thank you, and you're like, oh my gosh, like really, like it helps a lot. It helps a lot because you start to second guess yourself in your choices. So I don't know.
Well, I'm definitely glad that you're like pushed aside the second guessing to step into this, because I think the impact that you've had in so many other people's professional journey is huge. And I even remember the first time that I saw your account pop up on Instagram. I was like, oh my goodness, I remember her. And for me, it was through like one of the course that you taught on neurocollaborative on
Oh yeah.
Parkinson's. That's like the very first course that I watched. And so when I saw your account, I was like, oh, I know exactly who she is. I'm going to follow in a second because I know that the content is good, and I feel like educating is a gift, and I think that's definitely something that like that you have. Your way of breaking down information and conveying it is very, 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 very gifted.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It definitely feels like it comes from somewhere else. I'll be honest. And I'm always like, and I'm not a hardcore researcher. And at first I was like, oh, I have to do it this way, or I have to present this way. And then I was like, but that doesn't work for me. So like, it's trying to get rid of that. You have to do this, as opposed to I work really hard. I try my very best to give people that things that I think will be helpful, mainly because I'm looking for that day you feel frustrated and down, and your patient's looking at you, and we feel so responsible. And there's only so much we can do, is to just take a deep breath, lighten up, and have something to try, so that you can then move forward and get you kind of out of a niche, I think, or feeling stuck. And I think that's my intent, and to try and translate, because the literature, I mean, there's just a lot out there. There's obviously some that's better than others. You have to be careful when you see literature that only comes from one group. There's so many different things that you have to weigh, and their inclusion and exclusion criteria is a real thing. And so we do the best we can. We take concepts. I remember Darcy Reisman, when I interviewed her, she was talking about that. It's you can't do it exactly like this. You have to take the concepts and the theory, and you translate that into this patient at this time in this setting with this goal. And the things that therapists are doing out there is brilliant, and we're all doing the best that we can, and we just need to find support wherever it feels right. And so my hope is I just attract the people that works for, and no, I do know there's multiple people out there that have different approaches and different ideas to present, and they will attract the people that need that right now. So we're in a really interesting place in regards to, like, just, I mean, take YouTube, for instance. We did not have that when I was trying to figure out spinal cord injury 25 years ago. I remember at University of Rochester, I would have 100 hours of continuing at a year. Like everyone, you're supposed to have 10. And I would take vacation days to do courses. I paid out of my own pocket because I'm still to that day. I'm still like that. My husband's always like, are we paying for this one, or are you, are you getting paid? And I'm like, kind of 50-50, hon. So, but just trying to take it all in. And then I always learn something, and to take two things and then try it out and then see if I can get other people to try it out. And then we share, did it work or not? And I just, it's just way fun. If I continue to be focused that way, um, and and then getting the patients involved. Now we know these new things with motor learning and autonomy, and giving them more choice. And I was thinking back in the day where I was like, oh, is this the right answer? Is this the right answer? Is this it? And now I'm just like, if you're caught between two things, ask the patient. That's the right answer. And then then the stress relieves, and then all of a sudden we see how we could make an adjustment so that we can still have them do it fast, but we can adjust it to make it look better and get the heart rate up. Like, we don't have all the answers yet, but man, we have some big heavy hitters out there that we can start picking and choosing from to design it, because all our brains are so different.
Yeah.
And that to me is amazing.
It's wonderful. It really is like painting, like using different colors and different palettes. And I like how you said like back then you didn't have YouTube, because I think it kind of brings it into context that there's like so many discussions on like research and different things, but like practice inspires research. Like before knowing that the evidence said so and so, it was inspired by clinicians just trying something and figuring something and seeing if it worked. And so we know more now and we have more research now, but I think that, like you're saying, the fun of practicing and figuring out and exploring and seeing what works for this patient, I think is really important and something to not take away from clinicians.
Yeah, and so well said. And now that we have a way for them to share those ideas, it's easier to get to the researchers. I mean, before it's very siloed, and I'd say it still is, where researchers are here, and the clinicians who are like, well, that's all fine, but you're not giving me any specifics. Like, they're better at giving specifics. Say, instead of saying we did a great balance intervention protocol, it's like, okay, so what was that? What did that look like? Because we'd like to do it. That's better. But I also think, just in regards to getting ideas and seeing what people try, but everyone needs to recognize that whether or not the intervention worked or not for that time, you've learned something. And clinicians, if you're in a position where you share ideas, you never know who might see that to say, I could add that part. And the other thing about research, just to be honest, is it has to stay focused. Like, you can't layer on eSTEM on top of this task specific activity with an externally focused cue and this, because then if it works,
You
you
don't know
don't know
what is working from.
what thing really worked. And so the researchers have a hard job, and they have to stay focused. And that's why I really always had a hard time with it, because they're like, well, Jay, you can't do that, but he needs this. And they're like, but we can't, because that's not in the protocol, but he needs this, and so that would make me crazy. And I'd mess it up. They're like, oh, Jay, get out. Like, you can't be part of this. Because I'm like, but that's not right for him. That's not right for him. And then what if we don't know? Like, you layer this idea that maybe has a little bit, but is a little sketch on the research, but you layer that with this, just like optimal theory, right? It has an additive effect. If you add externally focused cues with autonomy and enhance, you have an additive effect. And so they're able to look at that. But in a lot of the places, when we're looking at eSTEM and all this and tying it together in a bow with the goal that's motivating and inspirational for them, that's unique. You can't study that per se. So you do the best you can, but you keep these big heavy hitters like intensity, like motor learning strategies, like error augmentation,
Yeah,
in your sites.
I love that. Now, still looking at your whole professional journey, like this time, if you had to say, like, the biggest milestone that you have accomplished or something that you're really, really proud of, what would you say that is?
Um, well, the milestone would be my PhD. I mean, the amount of that was really hard. And I had some people when we went through the program at Nova who had a lot more experience than me, who did an intervention with me, because they're like, Jay, you're like doing this assignment and this assignment, and like, you're supposed to be doing everything to lead up to your doctoral work. And I was like, that seemed like cheating. I said, oh, I can do that, really? Like, they literally like sat me down and said, okay, Jay, because I never had a really strong mentor. I never had anybody along my path that I really didn't. And so that's the other thing that I think I try is that if whether it's formal or informal, that you feel like you could use me as a mentor, like, to help give you some 2 cents here or there. Like, that's a great gift, because I just felt like I was always just making stuff up as I went. And I was always really more lone wolfing it, and just, that looks good. And so, but the PhD thing, like, I don't know what made me think that I could get one. um, and so I'm just so surprised. Like, Daryl's like, my husband, he's like, you said you're going to do it. And I know no matter what you decide, you will do it. But, you just like, okay, I'm signing up. Okay. Yeah. It costs a lot of money. Whatever. Like, okay, we'll figure it out. And I just worked really hard, and I had great friends that kind of supported me. That's probably the biggest milestone. I think the thing that's closest to my heart is the award that I got from the Academy of Neurologic Physical Therapy, because I got the excellence in neurologic education.
Hmm.
And to be
Congratulations.
to be acknowledged for that from the Academy, um, like, they can't take that back. It's over there, and it stays with me. But it was like, oh my gosh, like, people have noticed. Even CSM, I'm like, wow, like, people have noticed,
Aw.
because when you work so hard and you enjoy it, um, I think we underestimate sometimes how we can have influence. And it's always just really amazing to me. But that's my biggest joy in my heart, is because once I started going, that's what I hope to continue to be, or maintain that level.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on both of those things, because they're not neither of them are hard to do. An award, especially by the academy, is a huge recognition, and a PhD. I personally don't hold one, and everybody that I know that holds one, it sounds like they just went through hell and then came back alive. And it's a lot.
Felt like it.
It's a huge body of work. So congratulations on
And
that.
thank you. And it wasn't just me. To be honest, like, people ask me, like, how do you do all these different things? And I'm like, I have a husband that's
Oh,
truly amazing. And he really believes in what I do. And like, he has to hold everything else down and take care of all these other things, because I'm like, I don't have time for that. And we make a really, really good team. But yeah, shout out to him, because that PhD stuff was not for the lighthearted. And for any supporting family around you, it's not for the lighthearted for them either. So, very
I
appreciative.
like that. Husbands are the best. Um,
Yes.
well, that's a good segue. So, if you have this huge thank you list and you can give shout outs to anybody that has been really instrumental in your journey, like, so you mentioned your husband. Who else would you like to give shout outs to?
Well, my mom passed about a year and a half ago, but to my mom, because she's definitely the one who set the stage. And again, seeing someone like, so literally, just, this is my shout out, main one is her. And she grew up on a farm. Her parents said, you don't get to go to college because you're the woman. Her older brother gets to go. You don't. You have to stay on the farm. And she really, really wanted, she kept bugging her dad and bugging her dad. And her dad said, well, I'd consider you being a teacher or a nurse, but that's it. And so she said she had to stay in town at a place, rent a house or a room from this lady, because the ride was so far from the farm into town for her to even get to go to school. So they made sacrifices so she could do that. She said she looked up in the dictionary, she looked up nursing, and she's like, I don't want to be a nurse. And so then she looked up teaching, and she ended up finding physical education. And she said, right close underneath physical education was physical therapy. And she's like, I want to do that. And so she told her dad. Her dad said no. And then she got enough money to apply to CU Boulder on her own, and she got accepted. So this is like $5, whatever. I forget how much the fee to submit. Told her dad that she got accepted, and he said, okay, you can have this area of corn, and if you get any money from that, that's the money you can take, since you're going to go to college and you get nothing else from us. And she did. It was the best field of corn they've ever had. And she got enough money to get her to go to college, showing up, not knowing anybody. That's where she met my dad, who was a pharmacy student there. and just did it. Same thing with raising 5 kids and starting a private practice. Like that stuff, I don't know how people do it with kids, but that stuff is just amazing to me. And so whenever I feel a little lost, I kind of pull on what would mom do because that really she just would keep going. She would just work harder. So I think she's the main one. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's people all throughout every stage. It's just been through so many, like, and every person, like you, like every single person that I meet contributes something to my thought process or, how I might do something, and I'm grateful. But yeah, she's number one with my husband, I'd have
Oh.
to say.
That is definitely very inspiring to hear her journey, and it's also like it shows what is really important to you, because even from the beginning of asking you like how like did you always know you wanted to be a therapist, it all started with your mom, and so
Yeah.
that influence, I think it's is awesome to see. um JJ, like what do you wish people knew about like working in healthcare?
I mean, every place is different. Like every state I go to, every facility, so I think that if you're looking to, like, if you're a young and looking to go into healthcare, first things you need to go loiter about, ominously, like I say sometimes in the area to know, do I feel it? Like, is it PT? Is it OT? Is it speech? Like, not just assume it's one and kind of try and at least get a feel somewhere. So when you're going to school and spending a lot of money and a lot of time, that you already have some idea of what you could expect with that. Um, and I would say that again, every facility, every state, every place is different. Every setting is different. So if you're feeling like you're fighting all the time and it's your soul is just draining out of you, like, you go to a different place. I mean, I see you at Spero and all just so joyful and, doing so many things. I think that, you know, just don't settle. You don't need to be rash about it. Like, try, identify truly where the issues are, because there's issues no matter where you go. There's no perfect solutions, as my husband said. There's only trade-offs. So just decide, what are your trade-offs, what brings you joy, what doesn't, and then does this setting fit. But I think, I mean, your question about healthcare in general, it's just hard to pinpoint. I'm more of a specific person, just because, and there's a lot of changes that are going to, continue to happen. um, and so I just think the more information you have, and the more you recognize there are lots of options. That's why I loved PT. Like, okay, so I don't want to do acute care, I can go to inpatient rehab. So what if I don't want to do inpatient rehab? I can do home care. I could switch to pelvic health. I mean, that's like changing your job completely. I'd have to go to continuing ed and relearn everything, like, or ortho. So you have so many options. And the more you learn about them, if something's not feeling right, just start learning a little bit more about some other areas that might be interesting, because boy, there's a lot of time in life. You have lots of time. And so, searching is not a bad thing.
Yeah, that's, and you're right. There's so much that we can do within that same profession and so many different specialties. Gigi, do you
Very
have
cool.
any last minutes, like words of encouragement for clinicians that may be interested in transitioning into academia but very scared of taking the leap? Like last words of wisdoms for them.
Uh, Um, there's so many different ways now to find people. Whether it's Instagram or whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's through your where you went to school, and just going back and making a contact to find someone to chat with, to then find another person to chat with, and not being scared to ask people. I mean, if they can't, they'll say no. Big deal. Okay, can you chat? Do you have a minute? When I can, I do. And when I can't, I say I can't, maybe for 2 weeks, but or we could do it via email, but just, you need a couple different perspectives from people who are in there, because this person may like, oh, you really want to go to a residency, or oh, this program, oh, you really want an EDD, oh, you really want, and you get different perspectives, and then you start to feel what resonates for you. But we have that ability now. Not, I don't feel back when I was, and I'm not one of a networker. I don't like networking. It's not like my thing. So that's really hard for me. But now it's just like you can do it and never really have to meet the person either. So there's just so many different options. Just start exploring, start searching, start asking people for, specific questions. What are the 3 things that you would recommend, just like you just did, but ask them in regards to the area that you're looking at. So gather information, and then follow the leads and the doors. I never had a plan. Like they always say, oh, have your 5-year plan. What's your 10-year? I never had a plan. I still don't. I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up. But I always go through doors that open. But, but you need to explore a little bit to find those doors. I don't know if that's helpful.
No, that is very, very helpful. Gather the information, explore, and then ask questions. Love that.
Oh, that was good. I should have just said that. That
No!
was really good. No, that was perfect. You're a really great summarizer. You do a really outstanding job at this. I can see why you're in charge of the podcast. Nicely done.
Thank you. JJ, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to mention?
No, I think you did a very thorough and wonderful job, and it's just always a pleasure to chat with you. I was like, it's our second time meeting. It's just so much fun.
You're very easy to talk to you, and so I love that I get to do this and that I get to have conversations.
It's so much fun, isn't it?
Thank you so much, JJ.
Thank you, my dear. I really appreciate you having me.
Thanks.